the cash-strapped South African Postal Service has announced that it would begin consultations with unions, and this is about the retrenchments this week as the financial state of that parastatal worsens. Now, the Trade Union Federation, Cosatu, says it's concerned about the post office's plan to retrench almost 6,000 employees. Let's get reaction now, and we speak to Cosatu spokesperson Sizwe Pamla. Mr. Pamla, thank you very much for your time. What do you know about these consultations that are expected to start this week? Have those happened yet?
Well, yes, we have met with our affiliated union, Communication Workers Union. They briefed us that they are planning to meet with the management of the post office. We had previously met them on the 5th of this month when they received the Section 189 notices. This is worrying because actually this was contained in the February budget, and we tried to raise it with the relevant partners to say, this will be unsustainable. Firstly, because we do need the post office, and we need a very well capacitated post office. Secondly, that we can't have a government that takes the lead when it comes to destruction of jobs. The entire idea of having a government is that it should actually set the momentum and give a message to all of those who are out there that we are here to create jobs, not to destroy jobs. We are here to build the nation, not to destroy the nation. So if you destroy the post office, then you are actually undermining the delivery of public services. If you destroy jobs, you are sending a very toxic message to the private sector that they can follow your suit and destroy jobs.
Mr. Pamla, the post office says its financial situation is worsening. And I suppose for them as well, this is no easy decision. Where is the middle ground then? Where do you find the middle ground?
No, look, we know the situation at the post office. It has been like this for quite some time. And what we're arguing here is that government needs to do more in terms of funding the post office. Because, for an example, when they separated the post office and post bank, government never compensated the post office, which is something that they should have done. So it means that government actually does owe the post office because they never compensated them. But number two, if you look at the role of the post office, it has a universal service obligation of delivering services to the people. All people in South Africa, including people from far-flung areas, rural areas. What does this mean? It means that the post office is obligated to actually make sure that it continues to keep the infrastructure in areas, even municipalities, where it cannot expect to make any profit. So you cannot then say the post office has to operate on commercial grounds when you know that it is a vehicle that you use to deliver services to the people. Services you have promised to this people. And when people turn around and they say, well, we expect all SOEs to operate on commercial grounds. Not all of them have that capacity. And it is unreasonable to impose a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to some of these SOEs. The post office is unique, it's different. It is about delivering services to the people. We can have a conversation about what are some of the things that it is not doing right, what is it that it needs to do in terms of reskilling the workforce. For an example, we have argued that if you look at the competitors of the post office, it's courier services. Why is it that the post office continues to expect people to walk through the door instead of actually delivering services in people's doorsteps? These are some of the things that we should be exploring to turn around the post office rather than to say we're going to retrench people and add to the unemployment.
Yeah, this is an institution, Mr. Pamla. I stand corrected here, but the intention is that it also is going to start distributing social grants, if not already that process is underway. How then can it be trusted to carry out this mandate, this latest mandate, if it is going to downsize on human capital?
That's exactly the point. It cannot be trusted. In fact, the failure to capitalize it and to give it the necessary resources is currently undermining that very same program, because we read over the weekend, not over the weekend, I think last month, in fact, that they owe Telkom something like 225 million for the services that Eskom gives them. Now, Eskom was saying, we're going to terminate these services because you're not paying us. What does that mean? It means their capacity to electronically process these payments will be hindered. And who will pay the price? It's the people who have not dog in this hand. Government has never developed a funding model for the post office. In fact, for most of the SOEs. That is why we continue to say they cannot then call these bailouts. If you don't develop a funding model and you've been handing over money, continue to do so, because that is the model that you have adopted, and that is the model that everybody expects you to continue to honor. So, as far as we are concerned, we really do believe that government needs to really move away from this approach that the post office needs to be operated on commercial grounds. The post office needs to be treated as a vehicle that is being used to deliver much needed services to South Africans, urban areas, rural areas, in all the corners of this country. And for it to do that, we need to talk about how to fund it, and it needs to be given all the adequate resources, including human resources.
It's no secret, Mr. Pamla, that leadership issues have been at play and have plagued many of these SOEs. I can't tell you what number is Ms. Nomkhita Mona in terms of the CEOs that the South African Post Office has seen. How much of a leadership issue is at play here in terms of managing these institutions properly? Well,
leadership in SOEs plays a very big role, especially with the post office, because firstly, the point we are making of a high turnover of these senior executives is a big problem. Because, for an example, one of the issues we picked up was that there's been a resignation of people with institutional memory. Very highly experienced senior executives were let go, or some of them left. They've not been replaced by experienced individuals, or they've not been replaced at all. And this then becomes a problem, because you have a high turnover of CEOs, high turnover of senior managers. As a result, to turn around the institution becomes a very arduous responsibility. So that is why we're saying, let us talk about what needs to be done, rather than to say you have allowed leaders to leave, you have mismanaged the organization to the ground, you are one of the SOEs that is responsible for wasteful expenditure, where you pay people without delivering on service level agreements. And then, to get out of that quagmire, we decide to scapegoat people who are not responsible for the decisions that we have taken. Let us put this issue of Section 189 aside and have a conversation about who do we need, what kind of experience do we need, what kind of a skill set do we need, and then let's get those people. And what kind of a funding model do we need? What kind of reorientation are we going to need? Let's look at the workforce. Let's do a skills audit. Let's look at what are these people doing here, and what is it that needs to be done? How do we reskill them to make sure that they acquire the necessary skills so that they deliver the services? For an example, last time they went to Parliament, they were talking about venturing into e-commerce. Good, we support that. But how far is that program? And what kind of support do they need? So that we can actually talk about fixing the problems, rather than to say we're going to scapegoat people for the mistakes that they're not responsible.
Well, let's conclude the conversation on that element that you've just mentioned, the funding model. Perhaps that could be the solution here, Mr. Pamla, because if the Communication Workers Union, which organizes in the South African Post Office, is to be believed, they are of the view that workers' pensions have not been paid for over 2 years. I don't know how much of a statement emphasizes the point that the South African office is possibly bankrupt here, to a point where it is not making contributions towards workers' pensions. And so something has got to give.
Yes, indeed. Which is why we're saying that the Treasury in particular, they cannot wash their hands of the post office. For example, you are raising the issue of social grants. We're talking about building the capacity of these institutions to make sure that they deliver on their mandates. Now we have a situation where you have a policy department, which is social development, and you have a SASA, the security agents, the social grant agents, which is the middleman, and then you have the post office. So you have three government institutions that are responsible for delivering social grants. Here is the question. Why do you need this duplication? Because for you to save resources and to afford these institutions, you need to revisit your design of the state. The way the state is designed is flawed. Why do you need three bodies to deliver social grants, for example? What is the role of SASA? Because it doesn't pay social grants. It facilitates the payment of social grants. Why is it that SASA was created in the first place as an agency? What is it that it has achieved? Has it saved money for the state? No. In fact, at some point,
it's created employment for cadres.
That's the point that we're talking about, to say let us revisit how the state is designed. For you to talk about whether this is affordable or not as government, then you have to answer this question. Why is it that you design the state in such a way that it becomes unaffordable? We have long argued that agency should have been taken back into the policy department. It should have strengthened the capacity of the policy department to deliver on social grants, so that you don't have an independent agency that actually doesn't pay social grants, but that is also run on corporate grounds, on commercial grounds, where there is a board, there are senior executives who are paid exorbitant packages. So the issue of affordability and funding of these institutions, it comes from how the state is designed itself. So we can have a conversation about how to make sure that the post office is sustainable, it delivers on what its mandate is. But we need to start talking about whether the way the state itself is designed is sustainable. If not, then let us have a conversation about how to fix it.
Cosatu's national spokesperson, Sizwe Pamla, thank you very much for your time. And this, of course, is an ongoing conversation.